Welcome back to Varsity Stadium in Toronto, everyone. Canada against Australia. Canada's final tune-up before the World Cup. There's the way the lineup looks for Canada, and it's a key position for Charmaine Hooper.
Well, Charmaine Hooper will be sitting in behind the two front strikers in front of the midfield four, and expect Canada to put Australia under pressure right from the outset.
As far as Australia is concerned, they're resting a couple of players.
They're resting Sharon Black, a two-goal scorer from Wednesday night's game, and Casagrande, another player who had a huge impact on Wednesday night in Australia's 3-1 win over Canada.
And so we're set to go. Canada wearing their red uniforms, moving right to left. Australia in green and yellow, moving left to right. And we are underway here at Varsity Stadium. Temperature at game time about 28 degrees, but a very muggy day with extremely high humidity. Fortunately, a little bit of a breeze, which will help things out. But these players are going to need lots of water today.
They're going to need lots of water, but I'm sure for Neil Turnbull, he's quite happy with the conditions, because one of the problems Canada have had since arriving in training camp in Victoria beginning of May is it's very cool. And what this will do is acclimatize the Canadian team to the conditions they'll face in Washington and New York.
Australia controlling the ball. Julie Murray, number 9, there with an attempt that didn't get through the Canadian defensive wall.
Well, in the Australian team, we've got a team today that will play a physical style of game.
Referee for today's game, that's Sonia Denoncourt, who will also referee in the World Cup this year. Neil Schofield and Zoran Christo assisting her. And an attempt there, again, by the Australians on offense goes over Nikki Wright, the Canadian goalkeeper.
And that's an indication of what we're going to see throughout the day. On Wednesday night in the 3-1 defeat, the Australians look to play the ball forward quickly and look for flick-ons from number 9, Murray.
26-year-old Nikki Wright from Duncan, BC is probably the number 1 keeper, although Karina LeBlanc has played well lately. She played in that 4-2 loss to the United States last Sunday.
Well, similar to the men's side, this Canadian team don't seem to have any problems when it comes to the goaltending position.
9 for Canada is Janine Helen. Into touch it goes. Kelly Golobiowski for Australia. PC Hepperlin there with her. Throwing again, Australia. That's Amy Walsh clearing the ball.
Well, I'm sure that Neil Turnbull and his coaching staff and these players would like nothing better than to get a victory today. They're a week away from their World Cup opener. They've lost their last 3, so there's for them to get a result today would send them to the World Cup on a high note.
Walsh for Canada. Tanya Frank lets it on for. Well, she's going to chase it down now. That was Isabelle Harvey trying to make a play with her. Isabelle Harvey in for Silvana Bertini, who's got a hamstring problem.
And Silvana Bertini is one of Canada's key forwards, so I'm sure they're looking ahead to next week and making sure that she recuperates and is healthy come the first game against Japan.
Neil Turnbull, he said before the game that they tried to line up opponents that would duplicate the type of opponents they will meet in the World Cup. Australia, a rough team, much like Russia.
Well, he's done just that, and even in terms of the climactic conditions, he's got what he's going to face in 2 of the venues in the heat and humidity of Varsity here today.
Amy Walsh breaking up that play, sending it back to Janine Helen. Isabelle Morneau. Hooper with a little flick to Tanya Frank.
We talked about Charmaine Hooper's role, playing just in front of the middle 4 and just in behind the front 2, and that's an area where, for the most part, she tries to stay away from the marking and she sits in that gap. And she's the type of player that, as we've seen at the outset, 2 goals against the Americans last weekend, 2 good goals, and they'll be needing that from her if they're to be successful at the World Cup.
Frank with the throw-in, the 24-year-old from Scarborough. Be a throw-in to Australia.
There we see Cooper, the captain for the day, 50 caps for Australia. And I'm sure it's a milestone for her in her career. But I'm sure she'd like nothing better than to do well at the World Cup upcoming.
And Cooper will try the throw in here once again. Murray. Angela Yanota chasing that one down, beaten to the ball by Janine Helen. Neil Turnbull said that despite the 3-1 loss to Australia the other night, he thinks they're a team that Canada should be able to beat. And it would be nice to beat them going into the World Cup today, having lost 3 in a row already.
Well, part of the problem might stem from the fact that they played the Americans last week. Very emotional match, 27,000 people at Civic Stadium. And they did very well, although they lost the game. I'm sure that they really had to pick themselves up for that game. And then they come back and play an opponent which they should be beating, and perhaps there's a letdown there.
Throw in Australia. Let's check in with Alf Duplessis on the sidelines. Alf?
Guys, you mentioned Silvana Bertini a moment ago. She has the distinction of being a world record holder. The 30-year-old forward set a mark of 8 goals in one game in Canada's 21-0 dismantling of Puerto Rico at the CONCACAF qualifying tournament here in Toronto last summer. Unfortunately, we won't get to see her today. She's recovering from a hamstring pull, but you can bet she'll be ready for USA 99.
Well, it's probably an important thing to rest her today then if she can provide that kind of offense, which we know she can.
Well, it is, and even if there was any doubt of her fitness, there's no way that she'd be playing today. 21-0. The Argonauts would be happy with that, wouldn't they?
Yes, indeed they would. Canada controlling in their own zone. Back to right, the keeper. A little bit of a sloppy pass back as Isabelle Morneau forced just to clear it. Rosenau. That's Jeanette Haas. Cross into the middle. Australia all over it to cover there. Bit of a nasty one there on Jerry Donnelly. Donnelly is down. She's the veteran on this team, the 33-year-old from Port Moody, and she's in considerable pain right now. Another look at this one.
Donnelly in a tussle for the ball. I think it wasn't so much the foul itself, but it was the way that Donnelly landed that's probably got her in pain now. It looks as if she landed on her left arm.
Donnelly has been with the team since 1986, 67 caps, 9 goals over that period of time.
And I know for a fact that Jerry Donnelly's been training vigorously for this upcoming World Cup. I used to see her at the Vancouver 86ers training site, and she'd be off through the trails doing her run. So she's worked hard to get herself in top shape for the upcoming World Cup tournament.
Canada on offense right now. Number 4 is Tanya Frank. She's under pressure here from a couple of Aussies. Walsh as Donnelly, who seems to have shaken off that hard tackle from a moment ago. And the ball in front there, and a decent effort, but well high.
Well, that's good play by the Canadians, and it involved Jerry Donnelly in the middle of the park, playing a final ball into the edge of the box. Good possession around the third of the field, and a good ball in from Jerry Donnelly into the front striker. Takes a little bit of a bounce down, and it looked like the Australian got a block there, and it looked like it should have been a corner for Canada.
And Charlton Nolan with the header, and back and forth it goes here.
No foul kill!
Jeanette Haas. She loses the ball. 9 is Murray for Australia. She's taken down hard.
Australia physically are definitely a bigger side than this women's Canadian team, and you can see the challenge here. Murray will definitely be putting herself about today, and in that instance she was definitely taken down by Donnelly.
So a free kick to Australia here. Chipped into the middle, but Wright comes down with it and sends Hooper on her way with lots of space. Harvey. Frank. Walsh, and back to Helen. Good possession by Canada, and that's the one thing where Neil Turnbull said they had to improve, and he says they have.
Well, after you've been together for a month and a half, that's one of the things that he wanted to work on, and it was evidence there. They're trying to build the ball up out of the back. At the same time, I don't think Neil wants them to take any unnecessary risks at the back and risk being dispossessed and having a goal scored against them.
Australia on the attack. That's Sherolton Nonan doing a good job on defense there.
And that's the space Australia will be looking to attack. The ball into the flanks, trying to eliminate the Canadian sweeper, and looking to get the ball to the byline and get good crosses into the middle of the box.
Sarah Cooper to take the corner kick for Australia. Just over 10 minutes gone here in the first half. Cross in there, headed away by Jeanette Haas, and then Wright comes down with it, but that's going to be another corner, I believe, for Australia.
And Jeanette Haas is the yardstick that Cooper will be looking for when she takes this corner. What she wants to do, what the Australians are looking to do, is just hit the near post and just miss out Jeanette Haas at near post. So she's critical in that role. Anything that comes in there, she needs to clear away.
And it comes again. Haas won't get that one. It comes right through with Aussies all over the ball here. But Canada fortunate to clear away. That's Jerry Donnelly, but they're not out of pressure, and now finally they are. Australia with good possession right here. 17 is Golubiowski. One-on-one with Hooper. Golubiowski looking for Cooper. Into the middle it goes. And right again. She'll come down with most of those balls. She's 5'11".
She's tall. She should be dominant in her box, and in the early stages of this game, she's definitely dominating the box.
This is Tanya Frank. Challenged there by Cooper.
And speaking with Ian Bridge before the game, Neil Turnbull's assistant, he felt that on Wednesday night the Canadian team started off rather well, but they definitely showed the signs of fatigue in the second half.
That's Hepperlin with the ball on for Julie Murray. And that doesn't work for Australia. A lot of the play in the Canadian zone, though, here in the first quarter of an hour.
Australia do appear to have the fresher legs right now. It might be that after today they will wind it down in preparation for their opening game against Japan. And it might be that they just need a bit of a rest right now, and because they've had a long training camp prior to this.
Shift forward, but then just out of the reach of Tanya Frank, and so it's a throw-in to Australia, and Cooper will take it again. Looking for Murray, taken by Amy Walsh. She's challenged by Angela Yanata. Tanya Frank has Isabel Harvey, who's pushed away, but Canada will have the throw in here to be taken by Frank. Walsh. Back for Frank. Knocked away by Yanata. Again, knocked out by Yanata.
Well, the Australian defenders are not giving, well, the Australian team, in fact, are not giving the Canadians a lot of time to settle on the ball, especially when they get into the Australian final third of the field.
There's Julie Murray. She's challenged, but comes away with it. And then she's taken down, ball to Australia.
Julie Murray up front is the target man for this target woman for this Australian team. Good battle for the ball. Nothing nasty. as we await this corner, there's no doubt that Cooper is a good striker of the ball because she's coming all the way from the right back position over to take the corner. And needless to say, that's because of the service that she's providing. And the first 2 corners that she's swung in have caused Canada problems.
And they were good ones, weren't they? They
Very
were
good.
low, fairly low and hard, which is what you want. And here comes another one. That one's a little bit up in the air, enough so that Wright, the keeper, comes down with it and sends Rosenau away. She's looking for Harvey, but that was way offside. And so Australia takes over. Shannon Rosenau, 26-year-old from Edmonton, Alberta. Bridget Starr sending it in. Gets through everybody. Canada with possession now. There's Walsh. Harvey back to Walsh. Good little bit there from the Canadians. Walsh runs out of room, knocked out by Anissa Tan Darby.
Good work by Walsh to get a corner or a throw in for the Canadians team deep in Australian territory.
Janet Haas will put the ball back in play. Harvey back to Haas. There's the cross, looking for Hooper or Tanya Frank. Both of them were there. Neither one could get a good look at that ball.
Another good example of the Australian defending. They're not allowing the Canadians to get a clear header on goal.
Haas to put the ball back in. And Canada's ball once more. Let's check in with Alf de Blassus. Alf.
Bob, you were talking about Neil Turnbull's assistant Ian Bridge, a former teammate of yours. He'll be guiding Canada's first under 20 women's team at the Pan Am Games next month in Winnipeg. Now, one player in the team here today is eligible for that squad. That's reserve goalkeeper Karina LeBlanc. That means that right after the World Cup, they'll go into a mini camp to prepare for that competition, which begins July 23rd.
Meanwhile, here, Canada pressing for the first time just a little bit and have gained a corner here, I believe, and this will be Jeanette Haas to put the ball back in play. So Canada looking a little bit better the last couple of minutes on offense, at least getting some opportunities.
Well, the last time they were in this area, they got a good cross into the box from a throw-in. And Haas will, I'm sure, be looking to swing the ball in, trying to keep it away from the Australian goalkeeper.
Cleared out of danger, sent back in though, but too many green shirts in the way. Yanata for Australia. She's got Julie Murray in the middle. Peralta Nonan clears. The Star challenged there by Shannon Rosenau, and that was a little bit nasty. And the yellow card comes out for Shannon Rosenau.
Well, that challenge looked a lot clumsier than it actually was, and it wasn't. It didn't look as bad as it ended up being. In fact, the Australian player is very fortunate not to get booked for retaliation.
Another look at what happened right here.
Clean challenge, really just followed through on the ball, and obviously the linesman saw the retaliation, and now the Australian player is also getting booked as well.
Well, you had to figure that would happen. That was definitely a bookable offense for the Australian player, Bridget Starr. So Starr and Rosenau both booked by Sonia Denoncourt. So the game the other night, which Australia beat Canada 3-1, had a real edge to it, a very physical game, and this one has the makings of the same thing again.
And the Australians are playing much the same way. They're relying more on the longer ball up to the front men and looking to get the knockdowns from there.
Tanya Frank challenged by Yanata. Cooper to put the ball back in play. Pardon me, that's Julie Murray. No, it is Cooper. I had it right the first time. Down in pain there right now is Alicia Ferguson for Australia. Ferguson in a great deal of discomfort right now.
And it can't be because of the challenge. It must have been something that she may have twisted her ankle.
Yeah, the challenge itself by Isabelle Morneau was not serious. She must have twisted her ankle on that one.
She's obviously in some discomfort there.
Ankle. All right. What happened? Roll it. Outside or inside? Relax there.
See the ball get thrown down the line.
All right.
And it had to be that her foot was planted. Well, she's holding her shin.
Probably gonna have to come off.
Just relax, okay?
It certainly didn't look like much, but
No.
she's obviously hurt and now finally back to her feet.
How much?
Just see if you can walk.
Meanwhile, across the pitch, we've got Bridget Starr, number 3 for Australia, being attended to as well.
Stability, quite good stability.
Sure.
And I don't think that anything thus far has been nasty in this game. It's been a well-played, hard-fought match. And as a result, you're going to get some injuries along the way. None with any intent.
And the one to Ferguson appears to be under control, but the one to Starr might be a little more serious because they've brought the stretcher out for her.
Yep.
So this game has come to a grinding halt here with a couple of injuries to Australian players. Alicia Ferguson, who appeared to twist her ankle, although she's grabbed her shin, she's back on her feet, but in the middle of the pitch, just outside the Australian box, that's number 3, Bridget Starr, being attended to, and she'll be placed on the stretcher by the looks of it.
And it looks like Ferguson won't be coming back either. She's making her way around the pitch to the Australian bench.
And Bridget Starr is on the stretcher, as you can see. So strange turn of events here. I don't know what in the world happened to Starr. We were concentrating on Ferguson, and meanwhile Starr was laying down in the middle of the pitch, and now she's gone as well. So Australia will be forced into making some changes here. And the first thing we can tell you is that number 8, Cheryl Salisbury, will be going on.
Okay.
Salisbury plays up front, so I would suspect she'll be replacing Alicia Ferguson.
We look at Salisbury, one of the things that you can see that she's going to provide is some height up front for the Australians, more height.
And also warming up for Australia on the sidelines is Kristen Swaffer, number 12. In fact, she's into the game now. So a couple of replacements right there, Salisbury and Swaffer, as play remains in the Australian zone. But that goes for goalie kick. Jeanette Haas, the 22-year-old from Victoria, BC. Joanne Peters for Australia. As Belinda Kitching will put the ball back in play for Australia. Canada flicks it on, but Rosano can't get there. Right. Isabelle Harvey there. Hooper's chasing it as well. Charmaine Hooper has been rather silent so far in this game. Not much from her yet.
I think the Australians have done a pretty good job, not necessarily of shutting her down, but of shutting down the sources to Charmaine Hooper. And as a result, Canada had very few goal-scoring chances.
And here could be one right here. Good work from Amy Walsh. But instead of passing off, she elected to try and go right through. Diane Allegich couldn't do it. She had Harvey with her.
That passing lane is open for a split second, and the minute she took another touch, she lost the opportunity to lay it off.
Annette Haas over for Tanya Frank. Challenged by Renata. Peters. Tips it into the middle for Walter, for Murray, and then cleared back for Hepperlin.
Give myself no space.
Throw into Australia. Still pressure from the Aussies. Into the box, and there's Haas to clear. It will be a throw into Australia.
Well, Canada's starting to get back into the game, and right now it's fairly even. Most of the play in the middle of the park.
And I think they're finding it hot out there, the humidity.
Well, there's no question, because it's hot up here for us in this little booth, so I can imagine what it's like down on the field.
That's Rosenau on for Isabel Harvey. She needs some support up in the middle, however. Now it comes. Cross for Frank, taken away by Yanata. Frank, though, controls.
And anytime you get the ball in those areas of the field, you're looking to either generate a good cross into the box or a corner kick, and that's exactly what transpired in that sequence of events.
Isabel Harvey to take it. Headed away by the Australian back line. Bayon says Denoncourt.
What's interesting, because Murray seems to be involved in most of the fouls. She's up front, she's in midfield, but she's always being brought down or fouled at some point. It's definitely a foul.
Morneau clears for Canada. Hooper for Frank. For Rosenau. She had two people on her. Tanya Frank over the top right there, and the fouls have been adding up here in this contest between Canada and Australia, mostly by Canada.
And I'd say 7 of those fouls by Canada have been on Murray. So she's very much involved in the play.
Diane Alagich sending it down the pitch. Australia still controlling in the offensive zone. Hooper, though, takes it away. Good work by Hooper. Still controlling. Still controlling. And then ran out of gas and had nowhere to go at the last minute. I thought she might have been able to lay it off to Shannon Rosenau, but...
And I think that's what she was trying to do. The Australian defender, though, did a good job of getting back and making it difficult for her and allowing Charmaine to hurry her pass.
And so the keeper, Kitching, will put it back in. The pace of this game slowed right down. Maybe the heat and humidity having something to do with it. Give everybody a breather when they can. Oh, and there's a mistake, and the ball is played on. And number 9, Julie Murray, pardon me, had a glorious opportunity as a big mistake by the Canadian defensive line there. Sent Murray in alone, and she missed.
And this is where Australia are getting most of their success. The ball was flicked on. Murray got in behind the back four, around the keeper, and a great job of getting back onto the line and clearing off what would have surely been a goal.
And it began with a mistake by, I think it was Janine Helland. I'm not sure. I don't want to identify her wrong, but somebody there made a mistake, and that allowed Julie Murray to sneak in behind. And so the result is a corner to Australia. Not out of danger. Cooper puts it back in. Headed away by Haas. And then Rosenau, but that's a bad attempt by her to clear, and so Australia keeps possession. Golubiowski attempts to take the shot, and that just about got through Nikki Wright.
Well, in Nikki Wright's defense, that ball seemed to be moving all over the place as it was going in. It didn't have a lot of power behind it, but it definitely had a bit of spin because it looked an awkward shot.
Morneau sends one that's too far for Rosenau to run onto. But a bad clearing attempt there by Alagich. It's Canada's ball.
Well, as the game wears on, one of the things that should happen is Canada are trying to keep possession and trying to play more than the Australians. And in this heat, that should benefit them as opposed to the Australians.
Rosenau in front, cleared away. Half an hour gone in this match. Canada and Australia still 0-0. Let's check in with Alf de Blasses.
Guys, the Australian players that were injured simultaneously there have obviously been taken to the Australian dressing room. Bridget Starr has apparently a knee injury, seems severe. Alicia Ferguson, though, has a minor ankle sprain. Back up to you.
Thank you, Alf. So 2 Australians taken out here both at the same time, which is a little bit unusual. Canada winning the ball there. Sherolta Nonen. Good work from Sherolta.
Good skill by Nonen.
Through for Walsh. Canada in the World Cup in a group with Japan, Norway, and Russia. They will open in San Jose, California a week from today against Japan. Then they'll follow that up with a match against Norway, and that will be a difficult one. Norway, one of the teams to beat along with the United States in the World Cup this year.
Well, the big game for Canada is definitely the first one against Japan. Japan were beaten by the United States 7-0 and 9-0. Canada put in a good performance against the Americans last week, losing 4-2. So that's a game that they must win.
Ball sent into the box, and again, Wright comes down with it.
Well, Wright's done well in coming to collect the crosses. What she's also done well with is her distribution. The first thing she's doing, as opposed to looking downfield, is trying to throw the ball out from the back to allow the Canadians a build-up from the back.
And Peters challenged by Hooper, who won the ball, but Cooper was there. Walsh now for Canada. Jeanette Haas. Haas in front, but behind both Hooper and Rosenau. Frank for Walsh. He's played very well, I think, here in the first half for Canada. Holland. Nonen.
Well, the Canadians in the last 2 or 3 minutes seem to have found their legs. Good challenges, good running off the ball, using the width of the field well in their build-up.
Australia countering now. Controlling. Cooper. Alagich. Looking for Julie Murray. There's Sherolta Nonen. Oh, dangerous move there,
well,
but she got away with it.
That's casual play and good play, and she's kept her team in possession. I'm sure that Neil Turnbull on the bench, his heart is probably skipping a beat when he sees that type of thing take place, but good calm play by Nonen at the back.
Down goes Hooper on that latest exchange with number 8, Salisbury. Put the hip into her.
Hooper with good skill and too much skill. Obviously, the Australians needing to foul her.
Morneau into the middle for Hooper. Flick on to nobody. Jeanette Haas to put the ball back in play for Canada. Just over 10 minutes remaining, first half. 0-0, Canada and Australia. There's Harvey looking for Rosenau. Tanya Frank was there. Neither one of them could get a boot on it. And now Salisbury moves away for Australia. And that's Murray who goes down. Good defensive work from Sheralta Nonan.
Nonan's had a very good game, both defensively and offensively. It was her we saw a couple of minutes ago, quite composed at the back, and there she nullified a goal-scoring opportunity.
Coming back, here's Cooper in front. Morneau kind of muffed on that one. Fortunately, the ball moves out of danger for the moment. Cooper now. Epperlin chips it in front, but her teammates were going the wrong way.
And whenever Australia generates a good goal-scoring opportunity, it's mostly as a result of the team getting in down the flanks and getting good crosses into the box, and we saw an example of that just in the last attack.
Well, you know, one of the concerns for Neil Turnbull was the defensive play, because they have allowed quite a number of goals over the last few games, but they look solid here today.
They've looked solid. The biggest problem they've had is dealing with the Australians' height and dealing with the flick-ons when they've come. A couple of times they've been exposed at the back.
That's Haas looking for Rosenau. Canada's ball.
The Canadians are playing with a 3-5-2. The Australians are countering that with a 4-4-2.
Corner to Canada. Jeanette Haas will take it.
Part of the difficulty with taking corners here at Varsity Stadium, you can see there's not a lot of room to run under the ball before you hit the track, which makes it difficult to get anything on the ball.
Cleared out of danger there, but only momentarily. Haas puts it back in, and the keeper Kitching handles that one rather easily.
I talked about the formations earlier. The 3-5-2 that Canada are playing essentially amounts to one spare man at the back and then the rest picking up in front of her, whereas a 4-4-2 is more of a zonal defending, and you pick up players as they come into your area.
Another Australian player down here for the moment and not moving very much.
I think she took a knock on the side of the head.
Number 17 is Kelly Golubiowski. And she's up and apparently okay. Ball back in play in the Canadian zone. Into the middle, through everybody. Cooper will track it down. Off Cooper. Cooper off Cooper. We'll have to be careful with that one as the game rolls on. Helen. And it'll be a goal kick to Canada.
Well, we've mentioned that Canada have been in training camp since early May in Victoria. And I'm sure at this time that the women are all looking forward to the first game against Japan. That's a long time to be in a camp. They've played a number of games, but now I think they're ready to go and they're ready to play for keeps.
Neil Turnbull will take his team to California tomorrow. They'll stay in Toronto tonight, then fly to California tomorrow. And they'll work out basically every day as the ball comes through the box, and that's Salisbury. And that was close for Australia.
Once again, an attack down the flank, good ball into the box. Salisbury just a little off, otherwise that would have been a tap-in.
Cheryl Salisbury, the replacement here, the substitute.
Good ball in from the right, eliminates the keeper. Keeper can't come for the cross. Salisbury just getting there a little bit too late, not being able to redirect it back towards the goal.
Cooper. Australia countering. Holland for Canada. Cooper looking for Walsh, but that's intercepted by Australia. Cheryl Salisbury. Golubiowski. Good work by her to try and get around Sheralta Nonan, but then she basically ran out of room, and so Nikki Wright takes over.
The biggest difference in this first half between the two sides is that Canada perhaps had slightly more of the possession, but Australia are definitely more direct when they get in possession of the ball.
Just over 5 minutes plus stoppage time still to go in the first half of a 0-0 game here at Varsity Stadium. Once Neil Turnbull gets his team to California, they'll work out, not strenuously, he said, but it won't be just light training either, and they'll do that basically every day until they open against Japan a week from today. Australia coming through. This is Golubiowski again, looking in front for Salisbury, but that's a bit of a poor effort there.
And she won't be happy with herself. Anytime you get into those areas, you like to get good balls into the box. When you float them in behind the goal, that the opposing team sighs a sigh of relief.
Temperature here at Varsity Stadium, 28 at game time with high humidity. Very hazy day. Everybody's got the hats and the glasses and the sunscreen on and drinking lots of water as well. And that's not just the players. Morneau for Canada. Off Yanata. Throw into... Well, I thought it was a throw into Canada, but not. Cooper for Australia. Murray looking for Yanota. Allen sends it out for a corner to Australia.
And that's Helen's job. She's there as the spare player at the back, looking to pick up any pieces that the marking backs have missed up on, and she did her job at that stage.
Corner to Australia. It's Golubiowski. Far side, that's Cheryl Salisbury, the tallest player in the Australian team, going up for that one, but unable to come down with it.
Now Salisbury with an obvious foul in the box, and it's an area of the field that you don't want your forwards to commit fouls in, because all it does is let the defending team off the hook. It's a high looping ball. Salisbury gave Charmaine Hooper a little nudge in the back just before she headed.
Nikki Wright sends it downfield. Taken immediately by Australia, and that's offside. Salisbury in behind. Helen. Walsh over to Nonan. Ball was meant for Hooper. 10 Darby knocks it into touch. Hawes with the throw in. Salisbury now for Australia. Amy Walsh getting back. Fine tackle there. Yanova went down over here on this side. I'm not sure what happened to her. Morneau clears away. Cooper. Donnelly on for Rosenau. Tan Darby gets there. Back to the keeper. Halligan. Nikki Wright for Canada. Not much being generated by either side at this point in the waning moments of the first half. Just a couple of minutes plus stoppage time still to go.
Both teams looking a little tired, obviously looking at the clock, realizing there's not a lot of time left. I think both teams would be more content with not making a mistake at this point rather than risking going for the goal and coughing up something at the back.
Throw into Australia.
And just a reminder once again for everyone's safety, the city's rural bylaws prohibit fans from entering the field of play at any time during today's match. any spectator entering the field will play locally affected.
Well, they're certainly getting used to the high heat and humidity they'll be forced to play in when they play in Washington and New York City. Not so much in California,
No.
you wouldn't think, but
And it's a pity that their first 2 games aren't in the heat and humidity, because they will have had a good week of it here in Toronto.
Morneau hitting it up to Rosenau. Chipping it on for Jeanette Haas. That was Swaffer taking it away. Kristen Swaffer knocking it out. Haas to put it back in. Rosenau. Haas. Front. There's a strike and a ball on. Offside, however, the flag goes up as Isabel Harvey got in behind everybody.
And that's the benefit of playing with a back 4, as Australia are doing today, in that they can push out quickly as a unit, and in that case they did, and they caught Canada offside.
Into extra time here in the first half at Varsity Stadium. Kitching with the ball in play. Headed forward by Frank. Good run here from Isabel Harvey against Cooper. Harvey has it. Now Australia comes away with it. Cooper. Golubiowski. Donnelly clears for Canada there.
Well, it hasn't been pretty, but both teams are getting what they need out of the match. That's a good final workout prior to their opening games at World Cup.
Gregory Brown looking on. Would like to see a goal, I'm sure, and so would Neil Turnbull. The previous game they played, we had 4 of them. In the previous game to that for Canada, there were 6 in a 4-2 loss to the United States, and there could have been a lot more for both sides. That was a wildly offensive game. So far, nothing here. Salisbury for Yanata. Challenged by Tanya Frank.
And up to the American match, things had progressed the way that Neil Turnbull and his coaching staff would have liked. They got 2 good results against Mexico early on, played against a good Brazilian team, were well in that match, lost that one 4-2, and then again against the Americans, against a very good side, were well in the match, lost it 4-2. And it's only up until this last game against Australia that they've had a bit of a downturn. So that's why it's important for them today to try and get a good result.
We've played over 2 minutes of extra time here in the first half. Yanata controlling for Australia. For Golubiowski. Challenged by Helen. She gets around her. Helen got her the second time, but Golubiowski showing good footwork, finally taken away by Jeanette Haas.
Good footwork, but I'm sure she's frustrating her teammates a little bit because she's hanging onto the ball far too long.
Janine Peters. Hard tackle there by Charmaine Hooper.
A little unlucky on Charmaine's part to get called for a foul there. I thought she went in very well and won the challenge. The Australian player went down awkwardly.
She did get to the ball first.
Foot was
didn't
up
she?
a bit, but that's the only thing that I can think that would result in the free kick being given. Otherwise, it was a good challenge.
Swaffer to take it. Salisbury got a head on it. And then it was nearly a pretty good chance for Australia right at the whistle for Julie Murray. But it goes for nothing, and so the half will end in a 0-0 draw. So not much offense, in fact, no offense to speak of here.
Well, if there was any offense generated, it was more so by the Australians getting down the flanks and getting good balls into the box. Otherwise, not a lot of chances.
So that's the score at the end of the first half, 0-0 between Canada and Australia. And they'll be cheering on Canada for the course of the next 3 weeks or so once the World Cup gets underway next Saturday at San Jose when Canada takes on Japan. And as we get set to start this second half, Canada has made a substitution. Jeanette Haas, who has played down the right side as a midfielder, is out of this game, and in her place will be number 5, Andrea Neal. Neal is a 27-year-old from Vancouver, BC. And Tracy Bartlett is coming on for Canada there right now. Actually, number 5 should be Andrea Neal, not Tracy Bartlett. Number 5 is Andrea Neal for Canada.
Neil Turnbull.
Tracy Bartlett, I just want to clarify that. Tracy Bartlett actually plays for Australia, so that was the wrong name we ascribed there to number 5 for Canada. That's Andrea Neal for Canada. Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Well, Neil Turnbull going to his bench, perhaps not as much as we might have anticipated, but he's getting close to the start of World Cup 99, and obviously would like to keep that squad together for as much as possible.
Just about set to go. Everybody looking for every moment of rest they can get, I guess, here in this day with the heat and humidity, but we're just about set to go, and Canada puts the ball in play for the second half in a 0-0 game at Varsity Stadium.
Fans, your attention, please. Now playing for Canada in the second.
Morneau
Number 5, Andrea Neal,
sends the ball forward. Throw into Canada. Isabelle Harvey. Hooper. Good move by Hooper. And then fouled at the edge of the box, and that's a penalty for Charmaine Hooper.
And what a great start to the second half for Canada. Charmaine Hooper does what she does best, gets on the ball, stumbles through the first challenge, but once she got through that, she saw her route to goal, pushed it past the last Australian defender, kind of stumbles through this, but once she sees she's one-on-one, just looks to push it past and draws the foul.
And so it's Charmaine Hooper with a penalty here against Belinda Kitching, one-on-one. And this is the most dramatic moment in soccer, and certainly the most dramatic in this game. We haven't seen much yet to speak of. And so, Hooper. And she buries it for Canada, who take a 1-0 lead.
Very composed. Charmaine Hooper didn't take a long run up. In fact, just a couple of steps.
And another look at that one.
Couple of steps, side footer, out of the reach of the Australian keeper Kitchen. That penalty just about sums up Charmaine's approach to the game. Very composed under very, very difficult circumstances. A penalty shot, the score 0-0, Canada's last game before the World Cup. And she looked very calm, cool, and collected as she scored Canada's go-ahead goal.
So it's 1-0 for Canada here in the early going of the second half in a game that has featured very little offense, but we have a score. Here's Charlton Nonan. Tanya Frank to put the ball back in play. Hooper. So we'll see what that does to the strategy for both teams. Will it give Canada the confidence to go for more? Will it wake up the Australians and have them mount an offense? Ellen lets it go for the keeper Wright.
Nikki Wright taking charge at the back. You can hear her throughout the game constantly yelling direction to her teammates in front of her. And having played as a defender throughout my career, there's nothing better than to get that instruction from the last line, that being the goalkeeper.
Andrea Neal, the substitute, can't corral that ball, but Charmaine Hooper can. That's Harvey sending the ball in, looking for Frank. Bobliowski comes away with it. Another Australian down on the pitch. And this has been a scene that's been repeated several times in this game. Number 15 is P.C. Hepperlin, and she's slow to get up. Looks like she got a knock around the right eye.
It should be noted, though, that, again, there's nothing malicious taking place out on the field today. Yes, Canada have committed far more fouls than the Australians, but nothing nasty.
Good look for Canada here for Cross. Cross for Tanya Frank, pardon me, and she can't quite get on the end of that one. So PC Hepperlin, the player to go down here. Looked like the left hand from Hooper, eh?
And probably just the finger. It didn't seem to get all that much of her.
Very incidental, I think, as well. As we get set for this corner from Canada, this is Isabelle Harvey. To the far post, Hooper trying to come down with it. She can't quite do it. And so it's another corner to Canada.
Good
Harvey.
last corner by Harvey.
And
If
she'll
you're
do
gonna,
it again,
if
too.
you're going to float it in the air, it's best that you just try and eliminate the keeper. And she did hang up that one a little higher, but it did eliminate the keeper. Unfortunately, Hooper couldn't get much on it at the far post.
Harvey to put the ball back in play. To the far post again. This time the ball will be turned over to Australia.
And that's something that Neil might want to look at in his post-game analysis. Well, there's two corners, both clearing the far post, and not a lot of attackers coming in at the back post, so they might want to look at staggering the runs a little more so there.
Kitchen taking her time here, gets the ball upfield. Walsh has it for Neal. Looking for Rosenau, too far for her.
Well, Canada had a great start to this second half. I don't think other than an early touch by Nikki Wright, I don't think the Australians have ventured at all into Canada's half. And there seems to be a lot more spark to them. But mind you, that an early goal will definitely do that for you.
Australia clearing that one out of danger. Throwing to Canada. Sheralton Nonan.
Let's go.
Can't find somebody open, then gives it to Hooper. Donnelly flicking it in for Rosenau. Australia quick to clear. Cheryl Salisbury stopped by Isabelle Morneau. Canada has been much sharper on the ball here in the second half.
Well, again, you couldn't have a better start. You score almost immediately at the outset of the second half, and that calms them down and obviously deflates Australia a little bit.
Salisbury now for Australia. That really wasn't going to do much damage there.
No, the intention wasn't to shoot. She was trying to pick out Murray in the middle, but it was an errant pass.
Donnelly for Harvey. Ahead for Neal. She was challenged there by Alagich. Rosenau.
Sonia Denencourt's done a good job, the referee in the middle today. She's allowed play to go on. She hasn't stopped it unnecessarily, and that definitely helps the flow of the game. And of course, she's going to the World Cup finals herself.
Morneau for Walsh. Whoa, that was nasty. Hooper carries on, and she's fouled, and Walsh has not got up yet.
Well, Walsh was fouled, and Sonia Denencourt allowed advantage, which was a good call. Obviously, it was a foul, but she allowed advantage. She couldn't allow the second one to go on.
That was a tough one there by Anissa Tan Darby, putting Walsh down, and she's finally up on her feet. And then play was called when Hooper was fouled just a couple of seconds later.
I like to see that in officials, or the fact that they will look ahead and allow the play to go on if the attacking team is in the position that they can take advantage of it.
Janine Helland to put the ball in play.
Now playing for
Substitution for Australia. Number 7 is Lisa Casagrande, and she comes in. And number 10, Yanata, comes out. Ball sent in there for Andrea Neal, fails to materialize. So it's Casagrande in for Australia, and Angela Yanata is out.
Casagrande is one of the players that performed very well against Canada on Wednesday night in Australia's 3-1 victory over Canada.
Walsh headed that one down. Frank for Canada. Back to Helen. For Hooper, who let it go on, but Australia takes over. Australian keeper puts it away. Walsh knocks it back in. Not out of danger yet. Here's Rosenau. Holding on, she's got Neal. Neal sends it in, and it's a goal for Canada! Neal just lobbed that one in, and her positioning on that one was perfect. Her placement into the upper corner of the net, and no chance for Kitching.
Well, I do believe that it took a deflection along the way that definitely took it over Kitching's head, because it looked a very harmless shot to begin with. And if we look at Neal, good play, get the ball back to Neal. The shot just took a slight deflection off the defender and over the top of Kitching in the Australian goal. Canada right now are in a very, very dominant position. The Australians' heads have gone down.
A bit of a delayed reaction on that one because the ball was floating up there, it seemed like forever, but Kitching just could not get to it, and so it's 2-0 Canada. That goal coming in the 55th minute by the substitute, Andrea Neal. Tanya Frank now to put the ball in play. Rosenau, cleared by Australia, but not out of danger.
Scored by number 5, Andrea.
Tan Darby then clears it out of danger.
The goal was scored in the 55th minute. Andrea Neal.
So it's Andrea Neal in the 55th minute. Now she had a knee injury over the course of 97-98, worked hard on rehab, got back in form, and has come on in here in the second half to score the second goal for Canada. She's from Vancouver, BC, 27 years old, and so Andrea Neal for Canada after Charmaine Hooper opened the scoring on a penalty. It's 2-0.
And you like to see players rewarded in that way. She's worked hard to get herself back fit, and in she comes and scores a big goal for Canada that puts them in a very comfortable lead at this point against Australia. Great tackle by Charmaine Hooper.
Salisbury challenged there by Sheralta Nonan. Australia comes back. Morneau for Canada.
Morneau's had a very solid game in the back for Canada, both defensively and when she's able to put her team on the attack as well.
Kitching very slow to put this one back in play. Australian coaching staff trying to get something out of this one. They don't want to go into the World Cup on a losing note any more than Canada does, after all.
Well, in the first half was fairly even, and if anything, Australia had the better of whatever chances were going. But this second half, Canada has totally dominated. Mostly, I would think, as a result of the early penalty that Charmaine Hooper was able to score. It got Canada's tails up and then deflated the Australians.
Donnelly. Flicked it on too far. Australia put it back out. And it'll be a throw in to Canada. Let's check in now with Alf de Blassis at the sidelines.
Guys, had a chance to talk to Australian head coach Greg Brown. He told me the team's been training together for the past 12 months as part of a 2-year program that's going to see them go through to the Summer Olympic Games in Sydney next year. The Australian Sports Institute and the Sydney Olympic Fund have combined to pour more than $1 million into the women's soccer program, and their goal is to play 40 international matches a year as they get set to host the women's soccer competition at Sydney 2000.
Well, you can bet that the Australians will be powerful in many sports because they are pouring a lot of money into their sporting organizations to get prepared for Sydney 2000, and they will be competitive in a lot of areas, and probably soccer is one of them.
And that's also an indication, though, of the difference in teams' preparations. In Canada's case, they don't have anywhere near that amount of money, and they've assembled late, and I know that a couple of players were, Charmaine Hooper in particular, were concerned about that. But unfortunately, we don't have the resources, and you make the best with what you've got. And right now, you couldn't tell that Australia have spent that much more money on their program than the Canadians have.
Well, that's the danger of it, I suppose, of that kind of spending backfiring. If you don't get the results, there'll be a lot of finger pointing after the fact.
But it also helps in Australia's case that they're hosting the Olympics, so they've got to.
Here's Rosenau for Canada. And that one fizzled at the end. Canada 2, Australia 0. The final tune-up before the World Cup, which begins a week from today. And for Canada, that will be in San Jose, California. The tournament, of course, all across the United States. The Canadian team will then move east. And another substitution for Australia here. Coming in is number 18, Allison Foreman. And leaving the game is P.C. Hepperlin. So Foreman in for Hepperlin. After opening against Japan on June 19th in San Jose, Canada will play Norway June 23rd, that one in Washington, D.C. And then their final game in their grouping will be against Russia the 26th of June in New York. Here comes Canada again. Rosenau looking for Hooper. She's beaten to the ball by 19, Diane Alagich. Canada really keeping the pressure on here, Bob, in this second half. And a flick in front there, and Kitching, fortunately, to come down with that one, beating Rosenau.
And Kitching right now is fighting it a little bit. I think she, looking at her reaction after the second goal went in, I think she felt responsible for that. And right now she's looking a little shaky on everything that she's doing. But to Canada's credit, they've come out in the second half. They've taken the game by the scruff of the neck. They're winning the individual challenges. They're keeping possession of the ball. And most importantly, they've scored 2 goals.
Walsh. Difficulty there controlling. But Australia unable to get the ball past the center stripe. Now finally they do, just to get it out of there. Cheryl Salisbury trying to run onto the end of that one. Janine Helen, though, is there to clear back for Canada.
What a difference a goal will make. Psychologically, the Canadians, you could see their game lift after they scored the early penalty. And similarly, on the or from an opposite point of view, the Australians seem to have allow their heads to sag.
Here's Hooper now. Good control on the ball for her. Getting around Alagich. Far post looking for Andrea Neal. Canada still with possession. And finally, Isabel Harvey can't hang on to it.
The 2 times that we've seen Charmaine Hooper have the opportunity to run at defenders, on one occasion she's created the penalty, and on this occasion she went by her man and got a good ball into the far post that unfortunately the Canadians couldn't get on the end of.
Australia trying to mount something here in the second half. They've done very little. That's Salisbury off Helen. Nonan for Canada to Harvey.
Well, anytime Australia does get into Canada's half, the Canadian defenders, certainly in this half, are looking very comfortable and competent with dealing anything the Australians can throw at them.
Completely different complexion to this second half. Canada much more dominant. Australia has faded, and I think you're right, Bob, that penalty really seemed to knock it out of them. Tanya Frank to put it back in. Golubiowski for Australia. Tough challenge there by Hooper, and Hooper's being warned about it.
Well, she just followed through with her arm a little bit there. Again, I don't think there was any intent to injure, but Sonia Denenkorp picked it up right away.
Kristen Swaffer to put the ball in play for Australia. Ellsberg. With a flick on for Lisa Casagrande, but it's cleared out of danger.
You won it. Come back. Good. Time, Simon.
Hooper.
Time.
Well, one of the things that I'm sure Neil Turnbull will be looking for now, obviously they want to win this game and go into the finals on a high note. And what he'll be looking for is to make sure, even if they don't score another goal, to make sure that they don't concede anything at the back. Because in the latter stages of the game, that's where it takes the discipline, the concentration to make sure that you don't throw away what you've worked hard to generate.
Donnelly for Canada. Neal. All the way over for Frank too far. Throw in Canada. "20 minutes gone in the second half. 2-0 Canada over Australia here at Varsity Stadium in Toronto. A muggy, humid afternoon. A decent crowd here at Varsity Stadium in Toronto taking this one in despite the heat. And we've got more substitutions, and that's hardly a surprise given the oppressive conditions here at Varsity. Getting set to come in for Australia is Tracy Bartlett. She'll replace Tan Darby. They get it together. Okay, Canada.
At this stage, it's simply a question of whether the coaches want to give players a run out, which it appears the Australians are doing, making plenty of changes. And in the case of Canada, very few changes. And I can't blame Neil Turnbull. He must be looking ahead to next week, making sure that he doesn't want to tinker with a lineup that in this second half has been very dominant, and trying to carry that through to their first match versus Japan.
And so Bartlett is on to replace Tan Darby. And with nearly 22 minutes played in the second half, Australia has yet to register a shot on goal.
Good little ball into Murray, and I'm sure she would like that one back again. She tried to catch it on the half volley, but it didn't go anywhere near the target.
Foul there on Jerry Donnelly, and Australian players arguing that one a little bit.
And I don't know whether I would have given a foul there. Obviously a hard collision, but
Jerry Donnelly still down. Another look.
ball hanging up in the air, and Jerry Donnelly looking to come and head it. I don't know if that was a foul, a little clash of heads perhaps. Jerry Donnelly the worse off for it.
Well, and the veteran on this Canadian team, you can see by that stat, has had her knocks in this game, but she's still in there as Helland puts the ball back in. Throw in now Canada, Isabel Harvey. Neal to Harvey. Rosenau. Got a touch on that one. And Frank. Front Rosenau just missed it and it went to the keeper.
Rosenau are much more active in this second half. Down the left, down the right. Looking to always challenge the Australian defenders.
Casagrande with it. Challenged by 7 for Canada's Morneau. In front it comes, but there's Amy Walsh to head it away. Harvey. And for Neal looking for Hooper, who just bowls over her opponent.
Good play of that by the Canadians.
Another look at that last one. That was a good block by Hooper.
Well, Charmaine
Wow.
Hooper's momentum simply carried her through.
That was number 18, Allison Foreman.
I had the pleasure of coaching Charmaine's brother, Lyndon Hooper, for a number of years with Canada's national team.
Swofford sending the ball down, and players tiring just a little bit. Helen trying to get a foot on that, but just simply knocked it out of bounds. And so Golubiowski will put it back in. Here's Nonan.
With the conditions as they are, as you get tired, you tend to lose concentration a little bit. So this would be a good test for Canada. Now 2-0 up, comfortably up, to make sure that they don't have any mental lapses that will allow Australia back into the game.
Helen. Rosenau with a flick on to Frank. She's looking for Neal. The flag goes up. "25 minutes gone in the second half." Let's check in with Alf de Blasses one more time.
Guys, today's referee Sonia Denoncourt of Montreal is one of Canada's top female officials. She was the first female referee to officiate an A-League game here in Canada. She's also done international matches at the Atlanta Olympics. And as you mentioned, Jerry, she'll represent Canada at the upcoming Women's World Cup.
Canada on the attack here again. This is Charmaine Hooper now. And a good tackle there at the last second from number 5, Tracy Bartlett.
And an excellent build-up. You can see now that the ball is being passed with some crispness. They may be tiring, but they're certainly looking far more effective. And the Australian defender does a good job to actually nullify the opportunity. But prior to that, an excellent build-up down the left.
Corner kick to Canada. That's Harvey putting it in there. Hooper got a head on it, I believe, but Kitching was there to knock it away.
Hooper not tall, but still able to get up over and above the taller Australian defenders. And I believe it was an Australian defender that actually cleared it off the line.
And so now Harvey, who's the designated.
Here we see the ball floated up at the back. Hooper up, knocks it down, and it was the keeper, Kitchen, that did touch it for a corner.
So as I was saying, it's Harvey who seems to be the designated player here responsible for corner kicks, has to come across to this side now to take one.
Great ball.
That was a good one, taken away at the last second.
Harvey very comfortable either on the left or the right in swinging balls in, and she's done a great job of servicing these particular corner kicks, and that the goalkeeper really has been nullified while the cross is coming in either short or long. Another good ball.
Rosenau. Harvey will send it in again. Headed away. Not out of danger. Harvey takes a whack at it, and that one, she'd like to have another shot there maybe.
Well, she's probably tired. She's been running from right to left to take corners, providing good service into the box, so we'll allow her that shot.
And so Kitching will put the ball back in for Australia. Here's Hooper now. Well, and it looked like it was going to be promising for Canada, but it's taken over by Australia.
Well, in this second half, there's been a lot more opportunity for Canada to run at the Australian defense. In the first half, most of the first half was side to side passing by Canada, but in the second half, they've been able to get on the ball and commit the Australian defenders.
Kristen Swaffer making her teammate Golubiowski run a long way for that one, and then finally cleared. Just over a quarter of an hour plus stoppage time to go in the second half. Australia needing to mount something here. Swaffer putting the ball back in. Cheryl Salisbury. Tackled by Hooper. Then a lazy ball to Frank. It's taken over by Australia again.
Well, that was another example of Hooper's size not being a factor. Australian forward turned in, much bigger Australian forward, and Charmaine certainly came out the winner in that particular challenge.
Well, she's so strong, and she plays the game so smartly as well.
Very skillful, but at the same time very aggressive as well.
Walsh regrouping to Morneau. Nobody controlling this one for a while. A steady spell with the ball back and forth in the air. And then Walsh goes down in a pile with Salisbury.
Well, Walsh was the recipient of a rather harsh challenge from an Australian opponent earlier on, and I think she's simply just making sure that that she doesn't end up on her backside again.
Mary Beth Bowie getting set to take over from Tanya Frank. So more substitutions coming here for Canada as Cooper puts the ball in play. It's into the box, but there's Wright.
And another great example of Wright's dominance in the box. We could hear her from up here shouting to leave it, and that's a great shout when you're the last defender to get you out from under pressure.
Harvey sending the ball for Hooper. Cooper, though, knocks it into touch.
And you can see Hooper, who's been in that role just in behind the front two. That doesn't limit her to playing strictly down the middle. She looks to just try and create space for wherever, in whatever area of the field that she can. And in that case, it was out on the left.
And so the day is done for Tanya Frank, and she'll be replaced by number 18. That's Mary Beth Bowie, a 20-year-old midfielder from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. One of the more inexperienced members of this Canadian team.
Inexperienced, but what a great opportunity for her to come in with 15 minutes to go and to get her feet wet at this level.
5 caps for Mary Beth Bowie. Heading into this one as Kitching puts the ball back in. Donnelly with a bad ball there, taken away by Casagrande. She's looking for Julie Murray, and she's got an excellent opportunity, and she misses the open net.
Well, a slip up, first slip up, and that's what we referred to earlier. You cannot afford to concede these kinds of opportunities. The ball didn't get there on the pass back, and Murray simply took it too far around and couldn't hook back far enough to get the shot on goal. But that's something that Canada must avoid. That wasn't a question of Australia carving Canada up with good play. That was more of a question of a lapse in defensive play. Something that cannot happen, and they need to get him out of the way now so that it doesn't take place when it counts.
And that should have been a goal for sure. The score should be 2-1, but should have, would have, could have amounts for nothing. It's still 2-0 Canada. Allison Foreman with the ball into the box. Australia controlling. That's Murray again with an opportunity, and this will go, I believe, for a corner for Australia. Julie Murray, one of the most dangerous attackers we've seen today from Australia. Although they've had few chances, she seems to be the one penetrating more than anybody.
She's had 2 good chances, but neither have actually hit the target.
Hooper, the first one to get ahead on that cross from the corner kick. And that bit of danger has passed as Canada comes back now. Rosenau.
Squeeze him up, Kel.
Helen heading that ball out of bounds. Back into play by Sarah Cooper.
Get up, Kelly.
You can see Australia at this point, there's nothing to lose. Pushing players forward to try and get at least one and then put Canada back on their heels.
Back and forth it's going right now. It has been for the most part for the last 10 minutes or so. Swafford reaching for Casagrande. Nonen is there. Throw in, Nonen. Gain a throw into Canada. Neal.
Good skill by Neal.
To Walsh. Looking for Rosenau. And knocked out. Canada getting ready to make yet another substitution as Mary Beth Bowie gets set to throw it in. And there's the substitution. In is number 8, Sarah Maglio, and Shannon Rosenau, who's been doing a lot of running today, has left the pitch. Isabel Harvey. Harvey will put it back in for Neal.
You know when you're on.
It's kept in there, but it goes over to Australia, and a little tussle there developing between Neal and number 18, Allison Foreman. This game definitely has an edge to it.
Well, it's hot. Australia are down, and they're obviously not too happy about it. Just a little footnote on oh, here we see the altercation. And the whistle's gone, but Foreman and Neal pushing one another.
Helland for Canada. Neal. Looking for Maglio. Chipped away. Bowie. Challenged by Gobliowski, who comes away with it for Australia. And that play fizzled badly. I think she was trying to find Salisbury, but it went right through.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they've got some shade to sit under on a day like today. Hooper now.
Canada's last substitution, Sarah Maglio. There's an interesting little sideline there. Last week we were following Canada's national men's team at the Canada Cup in Edmonton. Her boyfriend, Steve Kindell, of 2 years, was playing with the men's side.
Hooper now. Looking for Neal, but the flag goes up offside. Less than 8 minutes, plus stoppage time to go. Second half, 2-0 Canada over Australia. A tune-up, a friendly before the World Cup.
The only chance that Australia have actually created, well, they haven't created it, the only chance they've had in the second half was a result of a Canadian miscue. And at this stage, Australia don't look to have the ability to break the Canadian defense down. So that's why, once again, it's very important that Canada maintain their discipline at the back and don't make any foolish mistakes.
Gobliowski taken away from her by Mary Beth Bowie. Bit of sloppy work from Gobliowski, and Bowie took advantage. Looking for Hooper too far. Well, this is the kind of game I think that Neal Turnbull was probably looking for. They wanted to score some goals to prove that their offense is still in shape, and they wanted to play well defensively, and they've got a clean sheet so far.
And they've rebounded from a 3-1 loss to this same Australian team, and they weren't happy with the way the team performed. The first half was much the same, but the second half Canada have virtually dominated throughout.
Gobliowski again trying to fight through. She's been running all day long for Australia, but nothing has worked for her yet. Hooper trying to outrun Cooper. Number 5 is Bartlett, and she's there. And Hooper and Bartlett go down together.
Clock's winding down. It would have been easy for Charmaine Hooper to let that ball run off the end of the field, but that's not in her makeup.
And Hooper
She tries to keep the ball in play.
And Hooper gets carded for her effort. She's booked.
Well, I don't believe that the card was a result of that last foul. It may be an accumulation of fouls. She's been working hard throughout the game. She's been making her mark, and I think that had to be an accumulation because that foul did not warrant a yellow card.
Down to the last 5 minutes and a bit to go in this game. Neal with Walsh working together well there. It goes out. Harvey puts it in quickly. Donnelly for Neal. We'll run onto this one against Alagach. Cooper for Australia. Canada doing good work keeping the ball in this end of the pitch most of the time here in the second half. Relentless.
They've done a good job of pressurizing the Australians, not allowing the Australians to get into any sort of real rhythm. In the first half, Australia had success down the flanks, but this second half, they've hardly gotten into the Canadian half and certainly haven't gotten unchallenged down the flanks.
Salisbury with a long throw in for Joanne Peters. Peters, good work there from her. Walsh with the clear. Hooper. Neal.
Good play.
Bowie. Takes it on her chest. Oh, and that's a hard hit there on Bartlett and Bowie. Whoa, that was a tough one there. Bowie get away with something maybe, although Bartlett was coming at her.
Oh, Bartlett was coming at her, and Bartlett didn't complain after the challenge. The ball, it was a 50-50 ball. They both went for it. No intent to hurt. Both players get up. Good sportsmanship being demonstrated.
Tough for Bartlett getting up there. You could hear the smack from up here, so she's a tough one. Ball still in the Canadian zone. That's Peters, fought off by Helen. I can't think of a Canadian defender who's actually played a poor game. They've all been strong.
They've done very well, and Helen gave a good example there of what her job is at the back. Very cool, calm, and collected. In the end, played the ball out of danger for a throw-in.
Canada with a 2-0 lead in the dying moments of this game, trying to hang on here and head into the World Cup on a winning note. They've lost 3 in a row. They didn't want to do that again here today. Salisbury elects to shoot. Didn't get a whole lot on that one.
Even though Canada have lost 3 games in a row, they did match up against very good opposition in Brazil and the Americans, who would be one of the, if not the top country in the world right now. So those defeats were not demoralizing for the squad. Certainly against Australia, that would have been a little more disappointing.
They'll fly to California tomorrow and regroup there and begin final preparations. Here's Morneau. Not a good ball from her, out of bounds. Cooper now. Salisbury. Walsh fighting her, and Salisbury slow to get up.
Well, Walsh and Salisbury have had a pretty good go throughout the afternoon, and that's continuing right now.
When Canada plays Australia, it seems it's a tough one. Cooper. Foul there by Salisbury on Morneau, and so Canada come away with it.
And I think there's some frustration showing on Salisbury's face right now.
Janine Helen.
Morneau just given a nudge right at the end.
Janine Helen now to put it back in. And look at that stat right there.
Well, those fouls would suggest that Canada have been very aggressive, and they have been aggressive, but not to the point where there's anything nasty taking place. They've simply gone and won their individual challenges, sometimes a little more overzealous than others, but it's important to play that way.
Peters, good work from here. Sending it in front, the ball's loose and laying there, and I think that was Morneau on the line, stopping Salisbury, who's down. Gobliowski, ball not out of danger, and then it is, but Salisbury had an opportunity there, and Morneau stepped onto the line to knock it away, and Salisbury is shaken up.
Salisbury, her momentum had taken it past the far post, and she couldn't get back quick enough to take advantage of the empty Canadian goal. Good cross from the left, ball sitting there. She just can't get back, and Morneau does a good job on the line to stop a potential Australian goal.
So they've had a couple of chances here in the second half, but have come away with nothing. Donnelly now, down the line for Maglio.
And if you're in a Canadian jersey, that's the place that you want the ball to be, down in the opposing team's half, away from your goal with very little time left on the clock.
Alagach. Back to the keeper. Salisbury. Little flick past Donnelly. That's for Foreman. Australia keeps coming. Into extra time here. Not much left. Canada leading 2-0. And what a great way to wrap up their friendlies before the World Cup, and there's a shot by 14 Peters. Didn't work the way she wanted to, obviously.
No, and over the last 5 minutes, Australia have had a little more of the play, but that's to be expected. They're 2-0 down. At this point, they've got to throw caution to the wind and launch an attack. And for the most part, Canada have looked resilient in their defending.
And there is the final whistle, folks. That does it. Canada with a strong second half. A penalty by Charmaine Hooper opening the scoring. And then they got another one from Andrea Neal and make the final in this one. Canada 2, Australia 0. But a good way to wrap up their preparation for the World Cup. They'll fly to California tomorrow on a high.
Well, a month and a half of preparation, lots of games along the way, lots of training. But this is a perfect way to finish it all, 2-0, and in the second half looked very, very dominant. That's something they'll need to carry over in their first match versus Japan.
And they exact a little bit of revenge as well, having lost the other night to the same team by a score of 3-1. They felt they did not play very well in that game at all. They certainly played much better here and took it to the Australians, especially in that second half.